What's going on, folks, and welcome to Fight Hard, Fight Clean. Don't know why I busted out these glasses, but it was just for the intro. Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua, a matchup that used to just be a fantasy fight like, oh, could you imagine? It might be happening. As you know, Tank Davis completely fumbled the bag with the Jake Paul fight after the alleged domestic violence and the lawsuit and all that stuff. And Jake needed a new opponent, not for November 14th, but just to close out the year with a fight. And if you saw my previous video, you know we went through every single possible replacement for the Jake Paul fight. But I don't even think I brought up Anthony Joshua because, like, what are the chances of that? Like, because it's such a stupid idea. That's why I was like, there's no way this is going to happen. Mike Coppinger has been on a rampage on his X page about, you know, giving us the up-to-date news about Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. Seriously though, Mike Coppinger is a legend. We've gotten everything from him. Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul are finalizing a deal for a heavyweight fight. That's another part of this possible fight. It wouldn't be an exhibition. It would be a professional fight that would go on the professional records, like it says right here. Apparently, it's slated to take place on Friday, December 19th, per sources. Okay, is this a bad idea? One of the worst ideas Jake Paul's ever had in his career. Hell, I'll even say this, not just his career, this is the worst idea of his life. Every single possible card in this scenario is stacked against Jake. He was in camp for months preparing for a lightweight Gervonta Davis. How do you transition from sparring lightweights, maybe getting your weight down for a lightweight, to then fighting one of the most dangerous British heavyweights to ever grace the earth? The sparring changes, the meals change because you got to put that weight back on. It's just a whole new challenge. And it's not like this is not another Mike Tyson. This is not a retired fighter that's going to give him relatively no issues. This Anthony Joshua has still got some power behind him, and he's still got some athleticism. We saw against Francis Ngannou, he's still got the knockout power like you can't believe. Even the Daniel Dubois loss, he took some heavy shots and he got dropped multiple times. But right before he got knocked out, he dazed Daniel Dubois. That's the only reason he was piling on him in the corner, because he threw a right hand and it really messed up Dubois' legs, and he just went for it. He was like, okay, this is it. I'm just gonna pummel him until the ref separates us or he goes down. And I saw a tweet not too long ago about, what if Jake Paul does this and it's the Dubois knockout? But still, I don't think Jake would be able to absorb a punch like that. In other words, a shot that dazed Daniel Dubois would knock down or possibly knock out Jake Paul. And this is, again, one of the biggest risks for Jake, because boxing is his one and only right now. If he gets brutally knocked out by Anthony Joshua, where do you go from there? You go back to YouTube, you want to start daily vlogging, you go to WWE with your brother, like, where do you go from there? And the buildup for this fight, or the contracts and negotiations, has been very flip-flop back and forth. Jake Paul put on Twitter that he's not holding his breath for 2025. Worst case scenario, he'll fight in early 2026. But then you see from IFN, MVP apparently paid DAZN a massive fee for Anthony Joshua to fight on Netflix against Jake Paul, because Anthony Joshua is, I believe, signed with DAZN. And as you know, Netflix is really DAZN's biggest competition right now. Besides from like ESPN, they are really trying to rival DAZN in just boxing and the events. And they're doing a pretty good job, because even though DAZN still has the professional boxing fights like Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn, which is literally happening right now, but Netflix is doing a great job because they're really focusing on getting eyes. They just want attention right now. That's why we saw Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. They're embracing the crossover boxing nature of the sport. I know Jake Paul, I think, has said on multiple occasions he doesn't want to be labeled, or he's not a crossover boxer, he's a professional boxer. But when you fight people like Mike Tyson at 50 something years old and Tank Davis at a 60-pound weight difference, or almost Tank Davis, then you can't escape the term crossover boxer, because that's what crossover boxing is. Looking at this fight, there is about a 95% chance of Anthony Joshua beating Jake Paul, but that 5% could hey, life is crazy. That 5% could come to life. Who knows, man? Maybe the right amount of ring rust, the perfect game plan for Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua not being able to land a shot, maybe the perfect counter shot. Everybody's got that button. If Jake Paul can land a punch like that, then he is now, again, I think his credibility is there completely. I think every boxing analyst and every person on earth would have to say, okay, Jake Paul is the real deal here. Again, one of the biggest arguments with Jake Paul right now is, oh, his fights are staged. Yeah, they're staged. They're fake. I don't think his fights are fake. I think he just picks opponents where you pretty much know the outcome. That's what a lot of people mean when they say, oh yeah, his fights are fake. But this, you can't fabricate this. He's still, like, Anthony Joshua is still in his professional career, and he would not take a money fight right now. There's no way. So if Jake Paul managed to beat Anthony Joshua in the less than 5% chance he has, he is now like one of the biggest boxers in the world, hands down. And I think if he somehow manages to not just win, if he manages to survive or do well against Anthony Joshua, then that's when the Canelo fights start coming in. Maybe the Terrence Crawford exhibitions, those kind of fights will really start to flood in for Jake Paul. Because even Andy Ruiz Jr., even though, again, that was meant to be as one-sided as can be to Joshua, Andy Ruiz has significantly more experience than Jake Paul. I don't think Jake Paul would be able to land a shot like that in the pocket with Anthony Joshua. And again, AJ dropped Ruiz in that fight. Jake Paul hasn't been hit like that in a while, and I don't know how he would react to it. The one time Jake Paul has been really dazed in a fight was against Tyron Woodley, when I think he was a cruiserweight. Now he's a heavyweight with real heavyweight hitters, and a shot like the uppercut left hook he landed on Ruiz may not be, an 8 count stand up and then keep fighting. It may be out cold, sleepy time. I will certainly be there to watch, because who wouldn't want to see Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua? If I had to summarize my words into a couple sentences, Jake Paul has a puncher's chance in this fight. He can punch, he's got a little bit of power, but I am almost certain that Anthony Joshua will turn him into a Wetzel's Pretzels and just annihilate him on the floor. It sounded like Anthony Joshua was gonna choke him out. That's not gonna happen. Anthony Joshua is not gonna put Jake Paul in a guillotine. I mean, he might, who knows? But no, seriously, Jake Paul, I cannot see winning this fight. This might be a momentum boost for Anthony Joshua, maybe to try and win another world title. I don't know how much time he has left in boxing. I worry for Jake Paul, because this is no longer about, oh, he's going to become a meme. No. He's going to get severely hurt in here. And I think Jake Paul has many other choices right now that would give him credibility, but not put him in a position to, again, not be able to speak correctly. Fights like the Tommy Fury rematch, Vidal Riley, fights like these, that's how you win the credibility of the people, because taking ridiculous fights like these are not satisfying critics. They're satisfying haters. Critics are saying, fight a real boxer. Haters are saying, fight a boxer that's way too good for you so we can see you get knocked out. If he really does want to push for this AJ fight, I agree with what he put on his tweet. Don't hold your breath for this year, because then you're going to be in severe trouble. Wait till early 2026, get your weight up, formulate a really good game plan to just sneak maybe the victory. We look at KSI versus Tommy Fury for an example. That was not going to be a good night if KSI went out there and tried to outbox Tommy Fury. But him and London Shoot Fighters formulated a plan and said, hey, if you just lunge forward with your right hand and dominate this fight, then you'll win on points. If Jake Paul can formulate a game plan and find a way to land and get out and just look good for the judges, and he grabs a victory against Anthony Joshua, he is now one of the most popular boxers in the world. Not pound for pound, but in terms of pay-per-view sales, he might be the cash cow of the sport, because either people will say, wow, Jake Paul might be really good, I want to see another one of his fights, or, oh my god, Jake Paul is such a scummy little douche, he managed to sneak a win like that, I want to buy a ticket to his next fight to see him get flatlined. This whole situation is getting crazy. I don't know what the next step is, but from what I see on Twitter, it looks like the next step is a fight announcement for MVP to post the poster for Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua on December 19th on Netflix. And if we see that, good luck, Jake. All right, the audio quality has changed a lot, but I'm currently in the editing booth, and I gotta talk to you about Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua being genuinely confirmed. It is a sanctioned professional fight. It will go on both of their professional records. It is going to be 8 3-minute rounds with 10-ounce gloves. In terms of weight, Anthony Joshua cannot weigh over 245 pounds. It's on December 19th in Miami, Florida. Oh my goodness gracious, man. Let me know how you think this fight would go. Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe. Yeah, I didn't mention I got a new animation. You may have seen that in a couple videos. That thing was cool. But anyway, yes, please subscribe, comment, like, helps me out a bunch. And as always, my friends, fight hard, fight clean, and I'll see you soon.